See, after all the talk, after how many times I have said over and over and over again that you are not the body, you are not the personality, you will speak as if I never said that. That shows you the extent of the hypnotism. You know?
So automatic.
Yeah, it's a mechanical thing. It's a mechanical thing. There is no hope. And if there's no hope, what's the experience you're left with?
Dissatisfaction.
Okay, depression.
Desperation. Fear. Desperation.
Desperation. Desperation. This has been an experience that has arisen for me in the last couple of weeks, in such an intense experience, right, that I couldn't do anything else. Literally, I had to cancel everything. I could not function because of the profound sense of desperation. And desperation, if you look it up in the dictionary, the dictionary defines the word desperation as the absence of hope. There's no way out. It's never going to work. You will never be happy. You see, you're still, most of us are still in this, and I was too. Most of us are still in this idea that, I got stuff. I got projects. I can look forward to things. You know what I mean? So I'm still in the hypnotic state that who I take myself to be is real, and who I take myself to be can get this to work. That's still playing, and I'm still giving it enough attention, right, that it blocks off the desperation. See how that works? You don't have to feel desperate about anything because you have hope. Hope for what? Well, things can turn out. Maybe the Democrats will come back into office. Right? Things will turn out. Anything can happen, right? Oh, good. So the weekend's coming. See how it works?
Yep.
It'll keep feeding up the thing. It'll keep, the voice in your head will keep feeding up the thing. Like, well, I'm not, I don't feel too good now, but, maybe tomorrow I'll feel better. So as long as you cling to this idea that there's hope, as long as you cling to this idea that there's hope, you can ward off the desperation. But what if the effect of your attending these meetings gradually over time depletes the ability of this machinery to continue to work until it gets to the point where it fails in its ability to ward off hopelessness? It fails in its ability to ward off desperation. And then you start to experience this profound desperation. This is never going to work. Now watch, this is the heart of the desperation. I'm never going to get out of what I'm not really in. And I'm never going to get in what I could never get out of. You see it in both directions? I'm never going to get out of what I was never in. And I'm never going to get in what I could never get myself out of. I could never get out of what I've always been. The point is that if you see through that, that's the desperation. I'm desperately trying to stop being who I take myself to be so I can experience this thing called freedom. I'm desperate. And I can't help myself. I can't help keep doing it. The machine keeps doing it, and I keep identifying myself with the machine. So I can't get out of that. And while I can't get out of that, I can't get in. I can't seem to get in. When I say to you, you've never ever been anything but what you actually are, then the way you read that as a personality is, oh, I want that. Yeah, I want to get into that. I want to get out of this. I'm going to get into that. Right? So where am I? I'm fucked. And if you allow yourself to experience how fucked you are, then you can allow the process, the necessary process, to happen. They call it the dark night of the It's certainly not something anybody would try and experience. You know, why would you try and experience something that's horrible? It's horrible. You know, to experience that there's no way out, to experience that there's no hope, to experience, what was it, Bob, the word?
Desperation.
Desperation. What do desperate people do? What do they do?
They make mistakes.
They kill the body, thinking that that's who they are. That that desperation is always a preempt to suicide, right? I was so desperate, there was no hope. So what's the point, right? Just take myself out, right? But the guy that jumped off the bridge that failed, when he came back, he said, "What I learned from jumping off the bridge and not dying is, I didn't have to do that. I could have experienced the desperation I was experiencing when I went to kill the body. And if I stayed in that experience, right, eventually I would have experienced what's on the other side of the desperation. If I'm so desperate that it seems evident and obvious that there's nothing I can do, right? If I'm so desperate, it seems evident and obvious that there's nothing I can do, what will happen next?
Then you just have to be instead of do.
No, there is no you to do anything. That's what I just said. There's nothing you can do. If you experience there's nothing you can do, what happens next? And the experience that there's nothing you can do means the experience that there's no hope, there's no way out, and you're desperate. And the desperation, the reality of the desperation is that there's nothing I can do. Isn't that what the desperation is? There's nothing I can do.
You give up.
Resignation.
Resign.
If you give up or you resign, it's not over yet.
Give up thinking that you're.
No, there's nothing you can do, Frank. See, that's a desperate statement you just made. Right? I tell you there's nothing you can do, and then you suggest that there's something you can do.
So you do nothing.
What's that?
You do nothing.
Well, there's nothing you can do, so how could you do anything but nothing, right?
Be with it.
No, you can't do it. There's nothing you can do. See how the machine won't stop? The machine will keep trying to say, no, no, no.
So there's hope.
There's no hope.
Well, we're trying to find a little.
How can there be hope when there's nothing you can do? There's nothing you can do to change what's happening. There's nothing you can do to change it. And if you truly give up, right? If you go through the experience of the hopelessness, which I can report to you as far as I'm concerned in my own life experience was the worst thing I ever experienced. I don't know if you can imagine that. Can you imagine what it's like to experience that there's nothing you can do? There is no hope, there's no treatment, there's no answer, there's nothing you can do.
This is before or after you went on retreats?
This was the last 2 weeks.
Oh, just recent.
Yeah.
I thought you were speaking of that.
No, I canceled all my clients for the last 2 weeks because I couldn't do it. I was consumed with hopelessness. Consumed. What was the word for?
Desperation.
Yeah. I was experiencing profound desperation. Not just desperation, profound desperation. There's nothing I can do. It's totally hopeless. So then what happens next? Yeah, nothing happens next. Yeah, nothing happens next. Because there's nothing you can do. What can happen? Nothing happens next. But what is there, when you get to the end of your rope, when you experience what I'm describing, and I'm not suggesting it. It's not. This is not an amusement ride. But in these teachings, what's negative is positive. In these teachings, what's negative is positive, right? So this experience of futility within the context of these teachings is a good sign. Huh? Because if you give up the activity The personality is an activity, is it not? Yeah, it's an activity. That's why we say move attention away from thinking, because the thinking activity is generating the illusion that you exist as a doer. I know I exist. I can prove it. I can do things. But when you get to the experience, there's nothing you can do that blows that away. I can't do things. In the absence of activity, what is there?
Consciousness, present moment.
Silence.
What's the opposite of activity?
Inactivity. Doing nothing.
If the activity stopped, if the activity that's generating the illusion that you're your body and you're your personality were to stop, what would be there?
Awareness.
Stillness is the absence of activity, isn't it? And isn't that your nature? And can that stillness be produced by activity? No, that would be activity. And yet that's what you do, isn't it? Yeah, you produce the activity of coming here, you produce the activity of meditation, you produce the activity of thinking, you produce the activity of all the rest of it, right? And the programming the program that generates the illusion that you're a body and a personality, right, has you believe that if your activity is the right activity, and if you do enough of the activity, or if you do less of the activity that's the wrong activity, that you'll get where you're headed, right?
That's kind of what I said in the beginning. I said, don't do, be. Stillness.
But you can't. You can't do anything. See, the thing is this. The way this actually works is that I speak to you in such a way that generates an interest on your part in the possibility that you can be free, right? I speak to you in such a way that generates an activity in your mind promising you that there's hope, that you can be free, in this life, that you can be free. I speak to you in that way. We even talk about it in terms of brain science, you know what I mean? It's a really good rap, right? And it's a really good rap. And what you don't recognize is it's a setup. I want you to really believe that there is a possibility that you can get out of the condition. I want you to really believe it, right? And then pull the rug out from under you. Because it was never true. And until you can be with that, right? Until you can be with that, the activity will continue. But if you can be with that desperation, if you can experience the desperation, if you can experience that there's no possibility, experience that there's no hope, if you can actually digest that, then there's stillness. And that stillness has always been there, waiting for you to stop. That's why Ramana Maharshi didn't say anything when he first started teaching, because he understood, no matter what I say, you're going to take it to be hopeful. And I don't want you to be hopeful, because there's nothing to be hopeful about here. There's nothing to be hopeful about here. You know, he said the greatest mystery that there is, is being reality ourselves, seeking reality. That's the greatest mystery. In other words, the greatest mystery is that you're already home trying to get there. Being reality ourselves, we're seeking reality. You are what you seek. Huh? The mind can play with this forever. You know, permeations of it can play with it forever. But all that playing with it, all that talking about it, all that coming with the idea, oh, you know, what the head will do is tell you, oh, you're making progress. Well, doesn't it? The head will say, oh, you're making progress. You had a breakthrough. You had a breakthrough. You didn't understand that. Now you do understand it. Oh, you're heading in the right direction. No question about it, right? Yeah. And then you get to heaven and you go to past the gates of heaven and you approach the gatekeeper and the gatekeeper says, Frank can't come in. Or just put your name in there. The gatekeeper says, Frank. Frank,
Where you call it, you're already there.
Frank can't come in. So then you go back and say, Frank can't come in. What am I going to do? You know, this is hopeless. See? This is hopeless. How am I going to get in heaven if Frank can't come in? This is hopeless, right? Then you go back and approach the gates again, and the gatekeeper says, Frank can't come in, and you just walk past the gatekeeper in. See, if you listen to the idea that Frank can't come in, right, you're being Frank. And Frank can never enter the kingdom of heaven. Your personality can never enter the kingdom of heaven. But if what you're being is nothing, if what you're being is no thing, see, people hear the word nothing and they hear it in a negative way. They think it means void or absence. You know, nobody wants that. But don't tell me I'm nothing. That's an insult, right? No, but that's a misunderstanding. I'm not saying you're nothing. I'm saying you're not a thing. That's all. Nothing means not a thing. If you look up a thing in the dictionary, right? Person, place, or thing. It's a noun, right? And a noun is something that stays the same, doesn't it? Are you something that stays the same? No. No, you're taking, it's like Paul Hederman said the other day. He said, you take the hose to be you instead of the water going through the hose. You think you're the hose.
So someone like, you hear about people getting such, deep depression, totally despair. The difference between, finding stillness and committing suicide is it just divine intervention, exposure to this teaching? Like, what's the difference between turning the corner and not,
It is the grace of God. There's only two possibilities, right? Either you're blessed in this life, right? Either you're blessed in this life with realizing the truth, which means you're dead. Which means you're dead. You've died. Right. Yeah, so you get to experience the rest of your life in freedom. Right? So it's either that, and according to the statistics, it looks like that's a pretty infrequent situation. Right? Yeah. Or you know that's true and it doesn't matter. You see it?
But it's God's will, so.
It's all God's will.
Right, so if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen.
That's right. But if you know what's not going to happen, you can still be free. Because if you know what's not going to happen, what you know is that there's nothing in the way. It's a gateless gate. Nothing needs to happen. Nothing, the barrier to your realizing the truth about yourself is that you think you have to do something. That's your nature as a personality. And you can't shake it. You just can't shake it. You think you have to do something, right? So the only thing that changes when the awakening occurs is instead of you thinking you have to do something, things still happen, deeds are done, things still happen, deeds are done, but there's no doer therein now. That's the only difference. So instead of being the hose, you become the water going through the hose. Nothing has to change. Nothing has to change. Things will always change, but nothing has to change. So you can just relax. You can just relax. That's why the emphasis is on relaxation, right? Don't keep trying to get out of something you're not in. Relax. What's happening here, deeds are done. What's happening here, but there's nobody doing anything. There is no self. If you get to the point where you let go because the futility of doing anything else is so obvious, right? On the other side of that is what? Stillness. The absence of activity is stillness. And you can't experience stillness through activity. That would be activity. And the stillness is always already there. And even the activity that's occurring doesn't necessarily block the stillness. Doesn't necessarily block the stillness, right? When you see that the activity is an expression of the stillness. You see, this programming has so thoroughly hypnotized your brain that you can only speak from there. You can only speak from there. I could tell you the truth and you'll tell me the lie right back. Oh yeah, but what about this? That's what Ramesh Balsekar calls the yes buts. Yeah, but what about this? That's the clinging. The personality is still trying to hold on to the possibility that there's hope. Yeah, in deep sleep, there's the absence of you, and in deep sleep, when the absence of you is occurring, that's when you're present. Your absence is your presence. When you're not there, you're there. When you're there, you're not there.
So when you're dreaming, that's coming from.
You're not dreaming.
When you experience a dream.
You're not experiencing a dream. So you see, it's like this is a different language, right? So when I speak this language, you can only answer me in your language. Do you see what I'm saying?
We're all in the corner with dunce caps on.
And what are we talking about?
Nothing.
Real fail.
There's nothing to get here. All right? But you can't say that up front with people because they'll think they're crazy for being here. So then you give them something that they think they're going to get here, right? And when they're really clear that they're like, I'm catching this, I'm getting this,
Yeah,
Pull the rug
class
out.
like this.
then you pull the rug out because there was never anything to get. That's why people continue to be miserable after decades of talking to people. They continue to be miserable because you're talking to a ghost. You're talking to something that doesn't exist. You're talking to something that can't do anything. You're talking to something that can't get out of what it thinks it's in. It can't. It never will. But you see, even the thinking isn't a problem when you understand that it is the will of God happening. It's not you. Do you see the difference? Thinking is just an expression of what has to be expressed. It's an expression of the will of God. It's not you thinking, it's thoughts occurring. How good is a life that can never be stable? How good is a life that everything that you get you will lose? How good is that life? How good is a life that ends in death? Do you understand what I'm saying? How can somebody say, oh, what do you mean? I'm having a good life. That's called out to lunch. Yeah, the first thing, and that's why David Radin wrote that book, A Temporary Affair. One of the first things that you have to allow yourself to get clear about, right, is that as long as you take yourself to be what you're not, this is going to end very poorly. That's why there's no death for animals, because there's no birth for animals either. They show up and then they disappear. They don't have a problem with it. In the same way, if the process that you're in right now fulfills itself, you just like the dog, when the time comes, will just lay down and relax. Nothing's going to happen. But you can't get there through believing anything. You can't get there through practicing anything. You can't get there by doing anything. So you have to experience the hopelessness of it all. If you look in your life, I promise you, if you look in your life, there's still shit you're holding on to that you think is going to work out. Isn't there? Yeah. So what will it take for you to wake up and realize that that's not true? It's not going to work out. It's not going to turn out someday. This is the way it turned out. This is the way it turned out. Well, I hadn't looked at it. I hadn't looked at this that way. But what it was I was experiencing the desperation of identifying as the personality. Because it's a hopeless cause. It's a hopeless cause. It will never work. It will never get you anywhere, right? And so the only possibility when that experience is occurring is to give up. But you can't. Can you imagine how frustrating that would be? The only thing you want more than anything else is to give up thinking that you're what you thought you were so you could get some relief, and you can't. And you can't.